You talked a bit about those cane toads. Well, I know they're not, it's a figure of speech really, but those players who could bounce back and they were resilient. I'm sure, without having a coaching role in the NBL like you have, my thoughts would be that, working with those kind of athletes is much easier than working with I don't know what you call them, the power puffs or the
Yeah, the cream puff, they're just
the
soft
ones
sort of
that
thing, just didn't like criticism and they just took it personally, and you got to be tough. You got to, and look, I copped a lot of criticism when I played and I copped, from the coach and whatever, but, you want to be good, you got to, take those chances.
Like those players who were playing for what was on the back of their shirt, their name, as opposed to, who was on the front of their shirt, which is the team they're representing. How much harder was it to work with those kind of players, and what strategies did you have to develop to really get them on side? Because I think you've said that a lot of the most successful years you experienced as a coach at the Bullets were those years where you were able to bring the whole team together. Whenever there was one or two that were out of place, they were always those years where, you had a setback or you didn't make it as far as you thought you could with those, the potential that was in the side.
Yeah, look, a lot of it comes to your coaching and your recruiting ability. You've got to make sure that all players, I've made some mistakes too. I won't say I didn't. I did, and but and you got to have everybody on the same page. You don't want someone rowing the boat the other way and the rest of us rowing it an opposite way. You've all got to be on the same page. So, and I think that's the art of it, is getting good players and things like that. And, I'm amazed these days at these teams that are picking 10 and 12, like superstar players, and trying to keep them all happy. I had Leroy, Ronnie Rat, Larry, Rob Sibley and one other, that were great players, and the rest were happy to be there. They wanted to get better and things like that, and they did get their opportunities, but they were content to play a role in the team, not like today, And the I lost a couple of championships, and certain players, they're out there for themselves, and we lost, and they didn't let themselves down. They let their teammates down, but they weren't with me the next year, that's for sure.
Yeah, and so coaching is really a tough gig. I don't have to tell you that, you know it. Plenty of your friends, like we spoke about off air, Wayne Bennett, he would know plenty about that. But you talk about there's two types of coaches, ones who haven't been sacked, and then those who are waiting to be sacked. It's inevitable, in sport these days, we see coaches getting sacked. Now, you were sacked 3 times.
Slow learner, mate.
Yeah, and I'm sure those times you were sacked, you learnt a lot. But what was it that I going away from basketball after you'd finished? Go from 6 to 7 days a week where you were, actively engaged with players. You had to think about game tactics, who was going to play in the matches, player management, managing egos and that kind of thing, to then having all that taken away from you. How was that period of your life after coaching and, transitioning out of that?
It was very dark. I got to tell you, there was some dark times because, I've spoken about this with Olympians. When they're up there in the spotlight, and sponsors want to know them, and they're getting cars, they're getting this and getting that, and then when your career's finished, you look around and there's not too many people. And it was the same thing. Like, my phone never stopped ringing. Have you got any tickets for us? Or, can we come into the change room? Or can we come and watch training and all this? Everyone wanted to know you. Everyone wanted a piece of you. But then when you got the chop, like I said, you could have a reunion with those people in a phone booth. There just wasn't many of them around. And but like I said, that's life, I guess, and things like that. But it was funny with me up here in Brisbane getting sacked once and then coming back again. How the same people that had left me, they're knocking on the door when I went back again. Expecting. I thought, oh yeah. You find one thing is a good thing about it is you learn who your friends are. And I have learned a lot that way who my friends are, and that's more important to me than anything else.
Although you have been treated well within the basketball realm. I think one question I'd like to ask you is: do you think going from playing into coaching and then into working with Victorian basketball, where I understand you got a bit of a scholarship, I think it was like $30,000 a year or something small, but you were head of a radio station there. The front, there were a couple of times where you're front page of the Herald Sun. You helped bring the game to the forefront of people within Melbourne, where AFL is such a prominent sport. And you really brought basketball into the forefront of people's minds down there in Melbourne. And, going from playing to coaching and then into a role like that, do you think that kind of helped, I guess, blunt that effect that, going from retirement straight into being, going from a somebody into a nobody almost? Do you think it blunted that effect into what you're doing now with the BK Basketball Academy? You've always had basketball in your life and you've always been surrounded by your friends or these young teens and the kids within the academy that have helped keep you, I guess, feeling young to some extent and still feeling like you're really engaged with what you love, which is basketball.
Yeah, that's a hard question in some ways, but look, I don't know. I just think it left a lot of hot, that hollow feeling in your body and in your mind and things like that. But of all the set, it's not how many times you get knocked down; it's how many times you get up that counts. All right, and you got to be prepared to get up. And I've got up a lot of times. I've been knocked down, but I got back up again. And because I could have sat there and been the cream puff if I wanted to, but no, I wanted to be that cane toad. I'll get knocked down. I'm going to keep getting back up. And I think of myself as a cane toad as well. And I had a lot of knockbacks in my life. And I had a lot of, I've been through bankruptcy and 3 marriages and stuff like that. Life. I don't think my life's been great, but hey, that's happened. Now I've got to move on and do better things. But it has helped me, and that's why I like to give people insight into me, because people see, oh, Brian Kerle basketball. There's a lot more to Brian Kerle basketball, and a lot to Brian Kerle the person. And I like giving to people. I like helping people and things like that. Which is makes me feel good. Like I said, I don't do it for notoriety or anything like that. But if I can make a difference to any young kid's life, and I have made difference to a lot of people, young people's lives, so that to me, I think is probably the biggest victories I've had, if you know what I mean. I had the privilege, and I say the privilege, of meeting a young man up here in Queensland. He lived at Gatton. He had cancer in the spine. He was at the Wesley Hospital, which was just over the road where we trained at Auchenflower. And in 1990, we played a grand final against Perth, and Cal Bruton was involved with that team. But this young fella, his mum rang me up and said, oh, would you come over and say good day to him? And, he loves basketball, he loves the Bullets. So I did go over and met this young lad. And anyway, we were taking him to the games. We weren't supposed to be, but we conned the doctors to take him out there. And he'd come into anyway, we played the grand final this in 1990. And, we lost in the third game to Perth, and it was a bit of pill. And I was sitting in a big room. We had a great big change room, had lounge chairs in it and all that. And I saw this young lady came in the door in the wheelchair, sitting there looking at me, young Justin. And I'm sitting in the chair, and I look up at him, and I said, "Hey, Kerle, wake up to yourself. Here's a kid that's going to lose the biggest game of his life. You're sitting there feeling sorry for yourself because he's lost a basketball game. There's going to be another basketball game. That kid's not going to have another life." Okay. He died 6 weeks later, 2 weeks before his 17th birthday. He passed school he was in the top 10 academics in Queensland. And 3 weeks after he passed away, Queensland University accepted him in to do medicine. And that brought me back to reality in life. Whereas basketball was everything. It separated me from my family a lot because I just thought I was letting people down from losing. It wasn't the fact of getting beaten. I was worried about letting people down. But this kid, he changed my life a lot. I still wanted to win, sort of thing, but winning wasn't the only thing to me after that. And that was probably, and we set up a cancer foundation. His mum and dad asked me if we'd do that and if I'd chair it, which we did. And we raised $600,000-700,000 for the Wesley Hospital for cancer research and things like that. That's better than winning any championship that I've won.
Definitely. Yeah.
That is my biggest win, to do something like that. So, a lot of people, you talk to me about, all those other things, but there's a lot of things like that in my life that I've done, and they mean a lot more to me than a lot of other things do.